Dr. Nightechoes.
I was in 7th grade, and the whole school was outside for sports day. Teachers were busy. Classrooms were supposed to be empty. I realized I'd left my water bottle on my desk, and my friend came with me because no one liked being alone in the building when it was that quiet. The moment we stepped inside, the air felt wrong. Not cold, not hot, just heavy, like the rooms were holding their breath. Our footsteps echoed too clearly. I told myself I was imagining it. I walked straight to my desk, grabbed the bottle, and turned around. Something was sitting in the teacher's chair. It wasn't shaped right. It leaned forward slightly, like it had been waiting. It didn't move, but I knew it was aware of us. My friend froze. I felt my chest tighten so fast it hurt. No one spoke. We didn't need to. We ran. The classroom was on the 3rd floor. The stairs felt steeper than usual, like they stretched longer with every step. Halfway down, I heard something behind us. Not footsteps, more like fabric dragging against concrete. Slow, careful, close enough that I didn't dare look back. We didn't stop until we hit the ground floor and burst out into the sunlight. The noise of the crowd came back all at once. Whistles, shouting, music. My legs shook so badly, I had to sit down. My water bottle had slipped from my hand and rolled away. I didn't go after it. We didn't tell anyone that day. Over the next few weeks, stories started coming out. Other students had seen the same thing in empty classrooms. A teacher admitted she'd seen it sitting at her desk early one morning. She quit not long after. No explanation. Just gone. The school shut down years later during the COVID lockdown. Officially, it was money issues. Enrollment problems. That's what they said. I still think about that 3rd floor sometimes. About how quiet it was. About how certain I felt that if we'd hesitated even a second longer, we wouldn't have made it outside. And I wonder if whatever was sitting in that chair is still there, waiting for someone to come back for something they forgot. This story took place at a remote government girls' school where I taught science from 2014 to 2022. The school was surrounded by open fields, far from any populated area, and accessible only by a narrow link road. I was appointed as a senior teacher for grades 9 and 10. Soon after joining, I began hearing unsettling rumors. Girls who transitioned from grade 8 into the high school section were experiencing strange, possibly paranormal incidents. At first, I assumed it was stress caused by the sudden increase in academic difficulty, especially for students taking science. However, the symptoms were too specific and occurred too frequently to ignore. Students reported breathlessness, choking sensations, seizures, and uncontrollable screaming. Strangely, these incidents were concentrated in the top floor classrooms that faced east. That same floor had a row of restrooms that had been locked for years. I was told they were non-functional. When a new principal later had them repaired and reopened, students continued to avoid them. Staff claimed the restrooms were always freezing cold, even during peak summer. I visited them myself in May, and they were indeed unnaturally cold, far beyond what shade alone could explain. Then came 2018, the year everything spiraled out of control. One of my students, who was often absent due to what her family described as spiritual issues, returned to class on a particularly hot morning. During a rooftop session with another teacher, she suddenly screamed, clutched her throat, and ran toward the edge as if trying to jump. Her classmates restrained her and tied her scarf to a pillar until help arrived. When we brought her to the staff room and tried to calm her, she suddenly bolted again, running back toward the high wing while screaming. Her behavior triggered mass panic. In nearly every classroom, girls began showing the same symptoms. Some fainted, others cried and gasped for air. Chaos erupted, and even the teachers were terrified. That day, the principal, who had never believed in such matters, was shaken enough to organize a Quran recitation at the school. Later, I began asking senior staff about the school's history. They revealed that the building was constructed in 1857 on land that was once a graveyard. The night watchmen admitted they never patrolled the building after dark. One even said he always brings someone with him, just to avoid being alone near the school at night. I was in 4th grade when people started whispering about the girls' bathroom near the gym. It wasn't a campfire story. It was something kids talked about during recess, like it was just another rule of the school. Don't stay in that bathroom too long. Don't look in the mirrors alone. And never say her name out loud in there. They said her name was Erica, a real student, someone who used to sit in class like the rest of us. The story was that she killed herself in that bathroom after months of bullying. No one agreed on how. What everyone agreed on was that she never left. Some kids said they buried her under the soccer field out back. The field was massive and uneven in one spot. When we ran laps, teachers warned us not to trip there. There was a raised patch that never flattened, no matter how many times it was filled in. My sister told me something that made it worse. She said years ago, a girl had been found dead in the bathroom. Not recently, long ago. A rope nearby. The details changed every time she told it, which somehow made it feel more real. Behind the gym, carved into the concrete wall, were small crosses, dozens of them, not spray painted, scratched in, deep enough that rain never washed them away. No one admitted to carving them. The security guard worked nights and slept during the day. Sometimes he'd talk to teachers in the morning. He said he heard running in the halls after midnight, lockers rattling, shoes on tile, like kids cutting loose when no one was watching. Once, he said he saw a tall woman standing in the girls' bathroom doorway. She wore a dress that dragged on the floor. Her hair covered her face. A black cat sat beside her feet and stared at him without blinking. She showed up during the day once. I saw her too, standing by the sinks. She didn't speak. She just watched us in the mirror. Her reflection lagged behind her movements, like it was tired. I didn't say her name. I still don't. That bathroom is still there. The mirrors are newer now. The floor isn't. The bump in the field never went away. And sometimes, when I pass that part of the gym, I hear kids laughing behind me when the hallway is empty. I worked nights as a custodian at an elementary school that doesn't exist anymore. I took the job because I needed the money. I hated it almost immediately. The building felt wrong after dark, like it was never meant to be empty. The sounds started on my first week. Footsteps behind me when I was mopping hallways. Not fast, not slow, always matching my pace. When I stopped, they stopped. When I turned around, the hall was empty. I told myself it was old pipes or the building settling. That excuse didn't last long. Keys jingled in the distance some nights. I carried my keys on a carabiner, and I learned their sound. What I heard wasn't mine. It echoed down the hallway ahead of me, like someone walking away just out of sight. I checked every door. Locked. Lights off. No one signed in. The office block was the worst. Every night, without fail, I felt like someone was standing about 5 feet behind me while I cleaned, close enough that I kept stepping aside to make room. I never heard breathing, just the pressure of being watched. I stopped turning around after the 3rd week. I didn't want to confirm anything. The gym made noise even when I avoided it. Shoes squeaked across the floor when I was on the other side of the building. Slow steps, pausing, resuming. The first time I checked, the lights were off and the doors were locked. The sound kept going after I left. Lights turned on behind me in rooms I had already cleaned and locked. Not flickering, fully on. I started taking photos of door handles and switches with my phone, just to make sure I wasn't losing track. One night, while closing up, I heard a voice behind me. Soft. Close. Too close. Where are you going? I didn't answer. I didn't run either. I finished locking the door with shaking hands and walked to my car like nothing was wrong. That was my last week. I quit before the year ended. A few months later, the school was torn down. I watched it from the fence while the walls came apart. I expected relief. Instead, I kept thinking about what never followed me home and what finally had nowhere left to stay. The bathroom rumor started before I did. By the time I reached 3rd grade, everyone already knew it. A kid had died in one of the elementary school bathrooms. No one agreed on the details. Some said it was an allergic reaction to the soap. Others said he collapsed alone and no one found him in time. What stayed the same was what came after. Kids said they saw him behind them in the mirror. Not clearly, just a shape where a reflection shouldn't be. Others swore they heard him calling out for help from the last stall. Quiet, strained, like he didn't have much air left. Teachers dismissed it, told us to stop spreading stories. That only made it worse. I never saw him. I never heard a voice. But I did walk into that bathroom more than once when it was wrong. Every sink would be running, full blast, only hot water. Steam filled the room so thick it felt like breathing through cloth. The mirrors were completely fogged, dripping down onto the counters. No footprints, no sound except the water. No one inside. The first time, I stood there too long enough to realize the stall doors were closed. All of them. I felt like I'd interrupted something. I turned around and left without washing my hands. After that, I stopped using that bathroom entirely. I walked across campus to the cafeteria instead, even if it meant being late. Years later, I tell myself it was probably a prank. Some kid turned everything on and ran. Kids do stupid things. Pipes hiss. Old schools have bad plumbing. That explanation makes sense. It always has. Except for one thing. The water was always hot. Not warm, not mixed. Hot enough that the air burned my nose. Hot enough that someone would have had to stand there for a while to turn every sink the same way. And no one was ever seen going in or out before it happened. I still think about it sometimes. About a kid trapped in a place meant to be private. About heat and steam and not being able to breathe. About mirrors you can't see yourself in. And I wonder if those sinks are still turning on by themselves. If the steam still fills the room. If someone is still in there. doing the only thing they can think of to be noticed, making noise, running water, waiting for someone to come help. She collapsed in the middle of a sentence. I was there. She stopped talking, pressed a hand to the desk, and laughed like she was embarrassed. She said she felt dizzy and needed a second. She sat down. Then her body slid sideways like the chair wasn't even there. The room went quiet in a way I'd never heard before. Someone screamed. Someone else ran for help. An ambulance came. We heard later she never woke up. After that, everything about the back hallway felt wrong. The small auditorium sat at the very end, tucked away where assemblies barely happened. To get there, you had to walk past a massive painting that covered almost the entire wall. It was old and dull, like it had been there longer than the school itself. It showed a wide outdoor scene with people scattered across it. Some were standing, some were sitting. Some looked like they were walking away from something. None of them were the focus. You could look at it every day and never really see it. A week after the teacher died, someone said the painting looked different. Not changed, just fuller. Like there was one more person than before. We laughed it off at first. Kids say things. But then more people said the same thing without talking to each other first. I stopped in front of it one afternoon with a friend. We counted figures. Then we counted again. One near the edge stood out. A woman turned slightly to the side, hands folded in front of her. Her clothes looked like something a teacher would wear. Plain, neat, too familiar. My friend said her hair looked right. I didn't answer. I couldn't stop staring at her face. It wasn't detailed, just enough lines to suggest features. But the posture was exact. The way she stood in class when she waited for us to quiet down. After that, I started checking the painting every time I passed. The woman never moved, but sometimes she seemed closer to the front. Sometimes I swear her eyes were more defined. Once, during a late rehearsal, I thought I saw her head angled toward the hallway instead of the scenery. People joked that all the figures were teachers and students who had died there. No one laughed very hard. The auditorium lights flicker sometimes now. I avoid that hallway when I can. Last week, I passed the painting without looking. I still felt watched, and I knew, without turning my head, that there was room for more people. This happened when I was in grade 6. We had whole-day classes, and I used the school service, so I always arrived very early. I was usually the one who opened our classroom, because I was almost always the first to get there. It was around 6:30 a.m. There were already students in other rooms, but in our classroom, I was completely alone. I was sitting at the back. Behind me was the restroom, and beside me was a window that faced the covered court, which wasn't really used much at our school. Since I had nothing to do, and I didn't have a cell phone back then, and phones weren't allowed in school anyway, I decided to work on some assignments I hadn't finished at home. While I was doing my homework, I heard the sound of someone playing basketball in the covered court, like a ball being dribbled. I immediately felt nervous because that court was rarely used. I didn't want to look out the window, but curiosity got the better of me. I thought maybe the school allowed someone to use the court early, as long as they came in early to play. But when I finally looked, all I saw was a basketball lying on the ground. I looked more carefully, even checking the benches, thinking maybe the person was just resting, but there was no one there. When I looked back to the spot where I had seen the ball earlier, it was gone. The next day, the CCTV footage from the covered court showed a man passing through the gate, holding a basketball, the same one I had seen there. In 7th grade, I attended a Catholic school in my hometown. There was a long-standing belief at our school that one cubicle in the girls' restroom should never be used. The restroom had 7 cubicles in total. One of them had been nailed shut for years. I'm not sure how long exactly. I looked at it once, and it seemed to have been turned into a storage space that hadn't been opened in a very long time. The cubicle you weren't supposed to use was the one directly across from that locked cubicle, the farthest one from the entrance. People said that if you absolutely had no choice, you should make sure someone else was with you. But if you were foolish enough to enter that cubicle alone and stay there for a while, you would start hearing the sound of chains dragging across the floor. At that point, you were supposed to leave immediately. They said that if you stayed any longer, you wouldn't be able to get out. It was believed that the cubicle was haunted by the ghost of a student who had committed suicide after finding out she was pregnant. It was only a rumor, of course, but everyone followed it anyway, so no one could really say whether it was true or not. There was a senior who supposedly tried it once. She came out of the restroom crying, insisting that she really did hear the chains. Back in the 1990s, there were many rumors that our school was haunted because it was supposedly a former hospital. People said the old morgue had been turned into a square-shaped gazebo with 2 rectangular stainless steel tables in the middle. Tables that were allegedly used to hold dead bodies. There was no internet back then, no Google, so no one could really confirm whether our school had actually been a hospital or not. Still, there were countless scary stories. One of the most popular involved a floating silhouette of a nurse seen drifting across the hallway on the 3rd floor. Many people claimed to have seen it, especially since the school band practiced on that floor and rehearsals often went late into the night. The auditorium was another place surrounded by stories. It had a baby grand piano, and many people said they heard it playing by itself. There was a restroom right next to the auditorium, and people claimed that if you went to the CR alone, you could hear the melody while you were inside. Fast forward to today, we eventually confirmed that the rumors were true. Our school really was a former hospital. It wasn't just gossip. It used to be St. Luke's Hospital before it was relocated to East Rodriguez. Something you can now confirm with a quick Google search. I don't know if what happened to me and my classmates was actually paranormal, but it scared the hell out of us. We were in math class. Honestly, both our school and our teacher were terrible. Everyone was bored, so we were just copying whatever the teacher was writing without really thinking, barely paying attention, and talking among ourselves. This happened about 2 months ago, around the end of August. It was raining heavily that day. Suddenly, there was an extremely loud lightning strike. The glass window shattered, and the flash was so bright that for 1 second, we couldn't see anything at all. A piece of glass hit one boy's leg. The power went out, and for a moment, no one understood what had just happened. The remaining glass turned completely black, and the boy's leg started bleeding. Some people said that lightning must have struck very close to the classroom. But if that were true, the student sitting nearest to the window shouldn't have survived. So we still don't know what actually happened. Everyone was terrified. With the power gone, we all ran out of the classroom in fear. The injured student was taken to the medical room. Thankfully, it wasn't too serious. Just a piece of glass stuck near his ankle. I swear, I still don't understand what really caused it. I wouldn't call it paranormal, but this kind of thing doesn't usually happen,